Gaurav, welcome to Speakeasy with Dheeraj Sinha. So great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dheeraj.
Amazing. Gaurav, like all my conversations, I always want to go to the source. I always want to go to the beginning and how it all started. And in this case, we'll talk about 1MG. But before that, the fact that you've been part of many other successful stints before it, right? So you're part of NetApp and you're part of Farmville at Zynga and so on and so forth. So how did that journey go and what led to 1MG? Let's start there, Gaurav.
Yeah, the journeys, I have a very simplistic way of looking at these journeys. And I think all of them are just explorations into things that fascinated me at one point in time. NetApp happened because during undergrad, and actually NetApp was my first job out of college, got recruited for a Bay Area company to work out of their Silicon Valley office. It happened because I was fascinated by operating systems during my undergrad years. How do they work? How do these machines, which are machines, end up becoming so intelligent? So again, went to NetApp, spent a bunch of years doing data storage, etc. And I was really fortunate that, unlike a lot of my friends, technology continued to be, my first sort of passion or love of humor. Didn't go to finance. All these things were very interesting from an exploration standpoint, but technology continued to be very, very exciting for me. After I'd done NetApp for many years, I started to feel this itch where, B2B businesses are very different from consumer businesses, right? Like you can probably attest to. There's this missing emotion and visceral feeling that you get on a day-to-day basis where you could ship stuff and you could see people interacting with it. Good or bad, you would get feedback every single day. And, I was starting to miss that. And this is during, 2006, 2007 era when in the Bay Area, there was just so much excitement around consumer products. And I was trying very hard to find some consumer company to give me an opportunity. But, I had mostly B2B SaaS background. So, of course, there were not many takers for my skill set. But then came along Zynga, and I had a bunch of friends who went to Zynga, and they started to interview. They said, okay, we'll talk to you. And Zynga was just an outstanding end-to-end experience for me, not just the founder experience itself, but the interview experience too. Meaning, there is no other way to describe that company but the fact that, you would go in and I would feel every single time that I entered when my energy level was maybe 10, and inside the energy level was maybe 150. And people were always running around with their heads on fire. They were hitting new sort of traffic and monetization benchmarks every day. Like it's not funny. Every single day, they were beating the previous day's traffic or revenue numbers, right? People didn't know what hit them. They didn't know when they would go back home. They didn't know what they would do tomorrow. It was just exhilarating. Fortunately, I cleared the interview process, and then they asked me that, hey, do you want to work on the infrastructure side or on the game team side, right? And I was like, look, I'm done with infrastructure for now. I just want to do something on the game side. And lo and behold, I was very, again, surprised to find out that, they gave me Farmville as a game to work on. And Farmville was, the day I entered, and this is a really funny story. So the day I entered, everyone was hunched over the computers, right? Like one big group hunched over the computers. You would expect normally that when someone joins a team at a senior level, there would be like a welcome team, but everybody was least bothered. And there was this group of 10, 20 people hunched over a computer. And I went to them, I was like, hey, what's going on? And they had done a sale on Farmville for the first time, okay? And there was a bet. The bet was that if they hit $3 million in revenue in one day, mind you again, $3 million in revenue on one day, then, Mark Pincus, who was the founder and CEO, would essentially rent a private jet and take everyone to Vegas.
Oh my God. Wow.
So this is what I walk into. And by the time the day was over, the team actually hit $5.5 million.
Wow. Oh my God! Wow.
Okay, this is one day, $5.5 million. Of course, the stakes were higher, stakes were heightened, and for no contribution of mine, I ended up going to Hawaii with the whole farm. Right,
Yeah.
so that was what Farmville was like, and every single day, I think that one experience taught me so much about myself, so much about how products are built, how to think about consumer psyche. Like, if you're working in consumer internet or any company for that matter, a lot of it is how your products interact with consumers, how consumers interact with your products, right? And what are their underlying feelings, emotions, aspirations that you're fulfilling, how you're making things easy for them. So from that experience standpoint, Farmville was amazing. And I went down to lead the game as their general manager and CEO. Did that for around a year or so, and then one downside is that you work in consumer internet, you get burnt out because the pace
Yeah.
is just crazy. So I got burnt out 2.5 years. I was also in this frame of mind then that I needed to come back to India, and there were two main reasons for this sort of transition. One was my parents were getting old, and I wanted not living in India to be an explicit sort of decision or choice, rather than just something that happens to you, right? That you graduate and you end up finding a job in the US
Yeah.
and you essentially become, a for life US citizen, right? I didn't want that, so that was one. And the second was that I felt that the impact that technology could have in a country like India was just so much more than it could have in the Bay Area, right? I remember very clearly this one Christmas we wrote letters to Farmville's biggest sort of whales, we used to call them, biggest sort of spenders. And we wrote letters to 200 people. The list stopped at, I think, $35,000, right? So if you had $35,000 in spend, you got a handwritten letter from the Farmville team. Otherwise you were too small. And we wrote to up 200 people, right? And I just felt that for all that I had learned, there was so much more I could do
Yes.
back here. And so we moved back to India, and again, 1MG came around. It wasn't deliberate. It was serendipity. I was at HealthCart because HealthCart was founded by two very dear friends of mine, and we were splitting out this business that was small but very high potential. It wasn't going anywhere as part of this larger umbrella because the organizations had very different objectives. And I got an opportunity to come on board as a co-founder, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, gonna do it. And what could be more impactful than healthcare? And that's how one MGK.
Amazing, amazing. What a fantastic story. And I particularly like the fact that you said that, with the technology and all the abilities we have, the real place to solve for is in India. And, in fact, we just did a larger workshop and a strategy piece with Leo Burnett last month in Goa. And that's what we've set up as our purpose as well. We're saying solving for a billion, right? Using creativity, using technology, using data. How do we, put the power of capitalism behind more socialistic goals, right? So that resonated instantly with me as well. So fantastic. So how's the 1MG journey going, Gaurav? I mean, if you could take us through some ups and downs, especially benchmarked against the Farmville experience of entering at 15 and experiencing 150 decibels of energy inside. How did you set out to build that culture at 1MG? Some ups, some downs. What's the story at 1MG and how is it unfolding?
Yeah. No, look, again, I think the only way I can describe 1MG is that it's a labor of love. And when we started 1MG, both Prashant and I, and then when Tanmay joined, we felt we had an opportunity to create something that we really sort of revered, right? Create an opportunity, create an organization that sort of mirrors your values, and see what it's like. So I remember, if I can mention, for instance, what I learned at Zynga, we used to have this value called "Be Your Own CEO," right? And
Yeah.
the reason for this value was very simple: that we don't want to get caught up in this being your responsibility, my responsibility. If you think this is important for the company to do, make it your responsibility, right? And just make sure do it. And Zynga was a really hard charging culture that way. People didn't. You would go to larger companies and you would hear things like "Don't step on each other's toes, be respectful." And Zynga was none of that, right? And this 15 to 150 energy came from that, right? There was just sheer adrenaline, which is that if I think something is right, I had all the license in the world to be a misdirected missile, if you will, right? And someone eventually told you that, hey, this is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. But, you were just a bundle of energy getting things done. And we wanted, for instance, that culture to be part of 1MG. So one of 1MG's core values is be your own CEO, right? We wanted,
like that.
We felt that companies rely on superstars, right? But nobody talks about teams. And we felt that we wanted to create a company where individuals are sort of deprioritized and teams are prioritized, right? And so one of our values is team before an individual, right? And reflects in our day to day, because we don't give individual awards, right? We don't say, hey, this is the superstar of the month. We say this is the superstar team of the month, right? And that's how we've devalued the individual, but really valued the teams. And we said, we have to come together. And every conversation that we have, we basically talk about how anything worthwhile that 1MG has built has not been an individual effort, but has been, a cross-functional, cross-department effort, right? One of our values, for instance, is accountability, because we felt that most organizations die because nobody wants to be the bad guy, right? And we wanted people at 1MG to be the bad guy. So 1MG has been nothing but this sort of journey of figuring out what makes us tick, what makes the company tick. How do you work in this environment of, this really hard charging environment where you talk about business and valuations and growth and success, while trying to do things the right way. So, 1MG's journey has been really humbling and really great in those ways. So just to give you some examples, when we started 1MG, we didn't know what a good growth rate was, right? Like how fast should you grow a company? Yeah. And I remember that Prashant and I, the first year that we started, we said, okay, let's pick 25% month-on-month growth, right? Neither one of us knew. Neither one of us are, marketing guys. In fact, that's one of the things that I also reflect on. Till today, we have a bare bones marketing team, right? We actually don't have a really strong or, full-fledged marketing function. So we decided that 25% number. We didn't think too much about it. And it was a challenge. It wasn't easy, figuring out, scrounging, picking stuff from the bottom of the barrel and trying to go 25% month on month. But, what we learned was that oftentimes what you can achieve is simply dependent on what goals you set yourself, right? If we set up 10%, we would have achieved 10%, but we set 25. So actually the first 2 years, we almost hit 25% growth month on month, right?
Wow.
And it was crazy. I think the second, experience which is etched in my mind was when we started 1MG, we were trying to rewrite our architecture, right? So we said, we got to be modern. A lot of 1MG was written like a couple of years back. So we said it's all old fashioned. Let's do this fancy new microservices thing. And the guy who was leading the whole project left midway, right? So I was left holding this massive rewrite project. And essentially, if I can go back and think about the few instances where 1MG would have shut down, I think that was one of them. But how as a team we recovered? We were resilient enough to sort of band together, get that project done, and then build from there, not let it affect our growth or success. Eventually taught us a thing or two about ourselves, that we are very resilient, very strong. When push comes to shove, we can get together. And every time that things have gotten tough at 1MG, instances like these have given me a lot of strength to think that we have what it takes. It's a matter of time. It's a temporary setback, and we can always just come back and we can regroup and we can figure this out, right? So I would say that's really like the big part of the 1MG journey, is that how do you deal with tough challenges by coming together as a team, and how do you always try and do the right thing regardless of what's at stake, right? Because I would say other two experiences.
Yeah. I can't resonate more with that because teams are individuals. On our value slide, Gaurav, we have camaraderie, right? We talk about I powered by we, and I know exactly what you mean. I have seen the power of people standing shoulder to shoulder and winning the game and the toughest of the battles. So we've been through a similar battle in last 4 or 5 years, and I exactly know what you mean. When you talk about the power of teams and power of collective, and not the power of divas, not the power of standard super powers, because our industry has a lot of them, right? Many agencies are built around them, and therefore Raj and I were very, Raj is my credit partner. We were very conscious that we wanted to build the power of collective, right? So for example, Can is very big for us, and when we go to Can, everybody, and if we win at Can, everybody who's at Can goes on stage, irrespective of whether it was your work or not. Because if you've been part of Leo Burnett, right, you've had something to do with that piece of work, irrespective of whether you touched it directly or not. So completely resonate with what you're saying.
Oh, that's actually great to hear, because somehow our society in general, and we as individuals, etc., there's a tendency to look at superheroes, right? Role models,
Yes.
superheroes, people being these superhuman superstars who get everything done. But
Yeah.
nothing large gets done without a collective effort, and we want
Yeah.
to make sure that Valengi becomes this place where teams come together. It's been really hard, because every time I get a proposal for something, it's about why don't we record the employee of the quarter and XY of the quarter. But we always go to all these things and say that it's always about the team. We will not create an award things like that, and we figure it out. But it's great to hear that there are others who believe in the same thing.
Yeah. In fact, we started, when we got into pandemic, I started a call with top 50 leaders of our organization. So without fail, Gaurav, last 3 years, every week, 10:30, 50 of top leaders of Leo Burnett get onto that call, and we discuss what's happening around, what do we need to do. All big decisions are taken there. And somebody who was part of my team walked up to me and said, Dheeraj, that's absolutely wrong, right? I mean, every CEO has to run an organization with 3 or 4 key people around them. You're trying to run this with 50 people, you will fail. And I said, so be it. But, this is the only way I know how to run the organization. And thank God for this, because, with what we've gone through, right, if it wasn't for the collective force, right, we wouldn't be where we are.
I agree.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, that resonated so well, Gaurav, that I could not come
this was great. In fact, I run a smaller, of course, not as large as you, but I run a team with 15 sort of not direct reports, but 15 reports.
Yes.
And then an additional 35 people who run the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And I believe in the same thing, which is, come together. Of course, I'm the loudmouth there, but we discuss things together. Every idea is welcome. So I'll reach out separately, and I'll maybe get some tips on how do you run these meetings effectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Week after week.
That'll be awesome. Now, switching gears a bit, Gaurav, right? I mean, obviously, pandemic happened and kind of accelerated lots of consumer tech businesses, right? And we saw that firsthand because, we've been part of Amazon, PhonePe, Spotify, Healthians, and so on and so forth. So we've seen how the hockey kind of kicked in, right? In many cases, we weren't as ready as well in terms of infrastructure, setup, and so on and so forth. So what has been the impact of pandemic on your business, A? And coming out of pandemic, we are also witnessing and still unfolding, right? We are witnessing some kind of a reversal of some behaviors and attitudes in many categories, right? So a lot of consumption behaviors going back to offline, right? So you see, for example, in D2C brands like Mamaearth are now, they're having built their brand online, they're now going offline, right? In some categories more than other categories. So what was the impact of pandemic, and coming out of pandemic, how are you seeing those behaviors? Are they staying? Are they changing? Are you also looking at Omni Channel, for instance, as a result of this? Where are we in that aspect?
Yeah, no, great question. Look, we are already Omni Channel. We've been Omni Channel for the last 3-4 years. Again, testing the waters.
Wow.
So the way we started Omni Channel was we used to run pharmacies and large hospitals in Delhi NCR. So at Medanta, we had a couple of years experience running their pharmacy. Then at Fortis, we used to run their pharmacy. So we've we've been omni-channel. Now, today what we are doing is we have around 18 retail outlets in Delhi, NCR, and Jaipur, and we are opening 35 more this month. So we have probably 50 store omni-channel pilot. And basically our omni-channel stores are 1 mg offline. So they are not just pharmacies, but they're also doctor consults and diagnostic centers all together, right? Whatever you get with 1 mg online, you get with that 1 mg store offline as well.
Yeah.
So very clear about omni-channel. And the reason I mentioned this at the start is that it's not triggered by the pandemic. It was always part of our strategy. But look, the pandemic, what's the right way of saying this? But it basically was massive amounts of growth.
Yeah.
With no marketing spend whatsoever. Right. and the hockey stick curve that you spoke about for Amazon, Mamaearth, etc., became true for us as well. Like, every month our numbers look better. Our bottom line looks much better because it was just like unabated, unbridled demand. A lot of it was artificial. We hoped it would never go away, but we were also very clear, I think, unlike some of the other brands, that it will go away. Frankly, we were surprised that it didn't go away as soon as we had anticipated, right? Mm-hmm. So we are, the way we operate 1mg is that we are very conservative when it comes to, these hands of God, acts of God moments, right? So we would always, put this big alarm there that, it's going to go away next month because COVID is going to go away. And it didn't, right? Because a lot of this behavior stuck. Even today, the number of people, so pre-pandemic, I think some people knew about the 1mg brand, not a lot, right? And I'm just speaking anecdotal, of course, not bringing in brand survey and brand track surveys, etc. in. But some people knew about the 1mg brand also because we don't spend a lot of money on brand marketing, etc. Right? We've always been much more of a word of mouth brand. But post-pandemic, everyone knows about 1mg. The reason they know about 1mg is because part of it is the pandemic, part of it is the brand marketing that we've done, part of it is the Tata, the whole Tata thing that has happened. And so the pandemic has been very kind for us from that standpoint. I think the one thing that is different for us versus the other brands from a pandemic perspective, what we are seeing is that the pandemic raised an average individual's healthcare awareness, healthcare know-how, and healthcare concern from, let's say, a 2 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10. Okay.
Yes.
Everyone's concerned about preventive health, tests. What do they need to do? Because there's just so much information that came to the fore. And from that standpoint, what we are seeing is that the general awareness of healthcare services not from a curative standpoint, but from a preventive standpoint.
Yeah.
The general tendency of actually investing in them. So earlier people were not aware. If they were aware, they would not invest. And if they would invest, they would be really price conscious, right? And we are seeing all of those things change to a reasonable amount where 6 out of 10 are aware. There's definitely a much higher tendency to spend, right? I know, for instance, in my network and otherwise, people are talking about, okay, what are the long-term effects of COVID? How do I go to get tested for them, etc. So we're seeing those trends in our networks, also on the business. And the lastly, I think people are starting to become less conscious about the healthcare expenditure and starting to spend more. And I would say that's a big difference that we are seeing in the health category compared to, let's say, an Amazon or a Flipkart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're saying there isn't much reversal back on the behavior, and which is heartening to see. Yeah.
Yeah. There isn't much.
Yeah.
So look, what's happened. The reversal that has happened is the growth that we used to get without marketing, now we get it with marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's happened is that earlier there were 10 healthcare startups. Today there are 150 healthcare startups. Right?
Yeah.
Because everyone realized that awareness and health is high. People want to spend, and that's actually a great thing for the ecosystem. We are seeing corporates starting to invest in health. We are starting to see insurance starting to invest in health. We are starting to see government start to invest more and more in health, right? So overall for our sector, I think the pandemic has been a huge positive, not just from a business standpoint, but from a mindset standpoint. And the mindset change actually brings in the long-term business inflection point that we think is going to come.
Yeah, I agree. So what's the vision, Gaurav, for 1MG, right? I mean, pharmacy, teleconsult. I mean, because in today's times, and you spoke about, you kind of touched it, right? Health is such a huge stack, right? It goes from pre to wellness to fitness. We now have a corporate tie-up for our top leaders. We are working with them on a continuous basis for better health and so on and so forth, right? You're right. I mean, all of us post-pandemic woke up to the fact that no matter how much money you have in the bank, what your insurance is, it's your body, right?
Yeah.
Nothing actually matters, right? So I think that awareness has been very sharp. So what's the vision for 1MG as a brand? What's the elasticity that you're seeing? Would you eat up everything in the spectrum? Is there a line you're drawing? How does this work?
Look, if I put my greedy entrepreneur hat on, then I have to eat everything in the ecosystem, right? But, I also, compared to others in the company, because most of my time gets spent on, let's say, execution and actually building stuff. I'm also very humble when it comes to how many things you can actually do a good job at building, right?
Yeah.
There's no way in hell that you can build everything on our own. And that's actually a good thing, because 1MG succeeds when the ecosystem thrives, when there are tons of companies which actually build great products, build great service products for the consumers and thrive, and 1MG helps them. So let me lay out how 1MG's journey, 1MG's vision of what it wants to be has been transitioning as well. When we started, and even today, our vision statement is that we want to be an integrated healthcare provider, which makes healthcare understandable, accessible, and affordable. And we've tried over the last 7 years to simplify the statement, but every time we've come up short, because it's such a great statement. We think that you cannot be healthier unless you understand what's going on, right? Which brings in the understandability quotient. We cannot make people healthier or improve outcomes until we bring in the accessibility. If you don't get what you need, then you're not going to be better. And then affordability is the last piece, right? So not only should you understand what's going on, you should have access to what you need to be done, and it needs to be accessible at, let's say, the right price and a great quality, right? So that forms the sort of underpinning the pillars of what 1MG wants to achieve and accomplish. And the vision served us really well in the sense that it's really broad, right? It's really grand that we want to do everything, right? Increasingly, what we are starting to say is that we want to be the operating system of health, right? And so, so I bring, and this is my, technologist view, which starts with operating systems and ends with applications, right? So, if you think about it, what does an operating system do? It basically gives you a machine which is really, really powerful, brings all the services that the machine has to offer, from internet to storage, etc., right? And what we are saying is that healthcare is not one thing. It is a bunch of many, many, many different services, right? So you look at pharmacy, you look at health risk assessment, you look at a doctor consultation, you look at, let's say, daycare surgery, you look at hospitalization, you look at, proactive care, you look at diet, you look at nutrition, you look at mental wellness, etc., right? So think of all these things as capabilities. And the core challenge has been, how do you bring these together, right? For a consumer to easily access based on what they need, when they need, and from whom they can get it from, right? So what 1MG wants to do, let's say if I was to build out this vision for the next 5 years, is to bring in all these services together, which are core capabilities, right? Whether we build it ourselves or we use third party to build it, it's not important.
Yeah, sure.
Right? On top of that, you basically start to expose a layer where these services appear as benefits, right? So you want fast, let's say Dheeraj wants 20-minute delivery. That's a core benefit that I have built, right? And then from these benefits, you can construct a variety of services. And we are actually doing that too. So let me give you an example. Someone wants to build a diabetes management plan, right? So what does a diabetes management plan entail? What it entails is that there's a protocol. There's a clinical protocol which you need to be put on, which says how many times a quarter do you need to get tested? What are your values? What is the input on that value? How many times do you talk to a doctor? And then how do I get your medicines and tests and everything else delivered? How do I get you counseling? How do I get your family counselor not to offer you those treats and not to get upset when you don't have those treats, right? Now, in the current context, building a service like this is very hard, right? Because you have to build everything yourself. But in the 1MG as an operating system to help you, this becomes very, very easy, right? Because we bring you a lot of products and services that you can simply bundle in. And you can just go focus on the clinical protocol that you have to build and that you have to deliver to patients, right? What's even better is that because 1MG is one of the largest healthcare websites in the world, we can actually help you acquire new customers as well, right? So you can come to us, we can tell you, hey, these customers actually have a high degree, high risk of diabetes. So why don't you sell your services to these people? And to these people, we say, hey, look, this service actually has diabetes management benefits of this sort. Why don't you sign up with them? So that's how we are starting to think about 1MG. Is that anywhere where there's a consumer who needs a healthcare service to use, 1MG is either the direct or the indirect provider for that healthcare service. So from the direct-to-consumer 1MG app, today we have around 65, 70 corporates that we provide healthcare services to, right? And the way it works is through this benefit. Just like you mentioned that for the top leaders, you guys have a healthcare benefit program. We actually power such programs for other companies, right? Other fairly large companies as well, right? We are working with hospitals and saying, hey, consumers come to hospitals once, but then they go away, they never come back because there's a missing relationship element. So how do we use 1MG to say healthcare services anywhere as the stack where you can engage customers, right? So that's how we're thinking about 1MG is basically a healthcare operating system, which embeds anywhere. So we embed with insurance providers. We work with almost every insurance provider you can think of. Wherever there's a healthcare benefit involved, 1MG is involved in terms of either directly or indirectly servicing that benefit, right? So that's how we think about 1MG.
And you're saying that these might be like apps, so it's almost like a marketplace model, right? You may not own all of them, you may own some of them.
We may own some of them. And eventually, look, you can't own everything, right? We will own some. Wherever the size is large enough and the service complicated enough, we will try and own all pieces of it, because how we want to differentiate is making sure that the consumer gets a seamless service. But other than that, we want to be a true partnership there where we enable as many providers as possible to actually deliver great quality services.
And this also allows you a leadership stance, right? Because you come like a big banner down, right? You pretty much do everything, become one-stop kind of a solution for the consumer. You become the default. And our big insight is that in India, it's only the default brands which succeed, right? I mean, consumer don't want cognitive load, right? People don't want cognitive load. I mean, marketers want to put cognitive load on people, right? Consumers want to, okay, for this is the guy I need to go to. They want very simple, easy decision making, right? Even in high involvement categories. Now, I was in my example always. I am from Bihar, and in Patna, if you break your leg, right? There's a Dr. Aryan Jha who's the specialist of orthopedics. And you'll go to him come what may, even if you get a 2 p.m. appointment. Because mentally you think that he's the only guy who can fix it correctly, right? So the whole idea that you have to become the default. You have to be the guy that you want to go to without much cognitive load.
No, I agree. Absolutely. Meaning the only slight, not counter, but the nuance to that is that I feel that in India today, our needs are still very roti kapda makan, right?
Yes.
And because they are very roti kapda makan, you only have like 3 or 4 brands that you can worry about, right? For this need, I go to this brand. For this need, I go to this brand, etc. But as we continue on this development path, I think our needs will get more nuanced. We will say, for this need in this category, subcategory, I go to this guy.
Sure. I agree. I mean, for example, we do, for example, Spotify, right? And we've got a strong depth with Spotify in top. But how do we go to the next level, right? And are those people actually bothered about a music streaming app? Or are they more interested right now in, are they still first time brushing with Amazon to begin with? So absolutely agree with you that we're still in deeper India, not getting to the second, third layers of consumption needs and baskets, at least from consumer tech perspective. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I want to pick your brains on, Gaurav, was that we spoke about the width and the horizontality of your business. What about the depth and reach, and how are you thinking about that? And I mean, again, pandemic, right? I mean, touchwood, we were a bit privileged. We had access to things, right? I mean, my heart bled on millions of people, and we know in India people don't buy insurance. There is, I mean, the whole infrastructure around medical system is pathetic, right? I mean, people sell their lands, the people sell everything possible for a small illness, which could otherwise be taken care of in many other ways, right? I mean, there's such a huge problem to solve there, and I know there is, this government is doing a health stack, and all the data will come together. There are initiatives at that end as well, and there are schemes from government. So there is a bottom end being taken care of, hopefully, by some of the government and public goods initiatives. There's a top end which is cushioned, but it's a huge middle which is completely uncatered for. So where do you see your brand and business? I mean, how deep you think you'd like to go, and how are you navigating the depth questions?
It's a very tough question, honestly. If you so at the end of the day, unfortunately, we are a business as well, right? So when it comes to the bottom of the pyramid, however much we may want, it's something that we cannot service today.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason we cannot service is, you absolutely hit the nail on the head, that India is a chronically underpenetrated insurance market, right? And I'm actually, while I laud the government for a lot of work they've done on the PMJ scheme, etc., I think they are absolutely world-class initiatives, and they will take some time. I just feel there's a lot more to be done to help a consumer just meet the day-to-day healthcare needs. And the big thing that's missing in India is, developed countries have figured out that your day-to-day healthcare needs essentially being taken care of lead to fewer hospitalization, right? Or delayed hospitalization.
Yeah.
We are not there.
Yeah.
Right. We don't understand that as a model. And I'll give you some examples. 5 years back, of course, we understand it as 1MG, right? Because we see this day in and day out. All of us have spent significant amount of time in the West where we understand these models and all. 5 years back, there was this huge push in the Indian insurance industry of actually launching OPD schemes, right? We basically get your outpatient expenditure covered under your insurance as well. But the way it was marketed was that it was an add-on to your existing insurance policy. And the way they said, hey, an average family is expected to go to doctor 6 times a year, etc. So they bundled all those costs, and they basically came up with this outpatient policy, which was more expensive than your inpatient policy. Of course, nobody bought it. We still have like a few tens of thousands, maybe, buyers of these policies, right? Eventually, the only way these policies make sense, if you start to amortize the money that the consumer spends today, or the money that you spend today, in actually it delaying hospitalization for you, right?
Yeah.
But we are not there, and so these policies have traditionally suffered from taking off. And I don't know if we have a great answer. So I'll give you an example of what we did. Many years back, we launched this program called the Care Plan. It was basically a subscription plan. And we said that, hey, if you spend more money on 1MG, we will actually discount it further and further, right? Today, we have run, surprisingly, one of the largest healthcare subscription programs in the country. We have 3.5 lakh subscribers. They pay 279 rupees every 6 months to basically get incremental benefits on their health. Free diagnostic test, free teleconsultation, and additional discounts in medicine.
Yeah.
We lack the technical know-how to actually make it a quasi-insurance policy, right? That's one. And we also don't want it to become an insurance policy, because then suddenly it becomes mired in this whole regulation book, right?
Yeah.
Regulation, which we don't know how to deal with, right? It's on the insurance side especially, right? So I think it's a really tough problem. For us, our focus right now is that, how do we actually innovate on the product front, where we can get a user to actually use more and more of the healthcare services? If they use more, our volumes increase, we can bring the prices down, right? If we bring the prices down, then we can offer it to more people. So that's where we are sort of focused right now, limited because, we have a fiduciary duty as well. But honestly, there's a lot of work happening on this front. I know that the government is doing a lot of work. If the NDHM, etc., takes off, I think it could be phenomenal. But I would say, realistically speaking, it's still least
still
half a
still
decade.
far away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also feel that, for example, just managing the supply and demand, right? Maybe technology, teleconsultation, etc., can also go some distance to solve, right? Because there are places where there are no doctors available, right? But there are doctors available at some other place, and there's video, and there's internet, and there's mobile phone in every hand today. So some of these things brought together should be able to solve some of these problems, I would imagine.
No, you're absolutely 100% right. And, there was a part of your question that I missed on the depth part. But look, one of the things that we've learned very, very well is that eventually to succeed, you need to focus on depth, right? Breadth is great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this is a lesson that we learned the hard way, right? Because when we started 1MG, we were essentially these consumer business heads, right? We understood how to build consumer products really well. But if you ask me, very, very honestly, I don't think we understood the complexity of supply chain, right? We felt that, supply chain is like this 100-year-old thing. Everyone does it. We've lost to do it, but it's freaking complex. And we used to work on a marketplace model when 1MG started out. Okay. Our, fulfillment rate was like 80%, maybe. Our delivery times were maybe 48 to 72 hours, etc. We had little control on what we did. When we switch to our own supply chain today, for instance, we can deliver in a city like Gurgaon in an hour's time.
Yeah.
Okay. Our fulfillment rate on 99 point some percentage.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So every metric that we have,
yes.
Of course, that has taken significant amount of investment in supply chain and technology and organization to make it happen, right? Yeah. So I don't think it's possible to build a high quality business with breadth, right? You have to win at something, right? Like even for you guys, right? It's easy to say you are, let's say, a creative shop of some sort, but there is a depth that you have. That depth could be outstanding creative. The depth could be outstanding understanding of your business and fitting creative to it, or the planning aspect, right? But there has to be a depth. Otherwise, you get the consumer once, but you don't get him on a repeated basis.
And going end to end, right? And so that start you here and you go all the way to production. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Absolutely. Going end to end. And it's only when you get into the depth, you realize how hard some problems are. So I'll give you the teleconsulting example, right? The reason, and we've been racking our head at this for the last 7 years. But in India, there is no arbitrage for teleconsultants to work. The guy who doesn't have a doctor doesn't have money to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
The reason there are no doctors in remote areas, of course, there's no one to pay, right? There's no money to pay.
Yeah.
And in cities, what the patient says is that, hey, if I go to a doctor's clinic, he charges me 500 rupees, but he touches me. He does my pulse. He puts a stethoscope, something's happening.
Yeah.
Why should I pay 500 rupees online?
Yeah.
Okay, because the experience is not the same. If you go to a doctor, the doctor says, hey, look, if I sell my consult for 200 rupees online because there are 3 things missing, then the patient comes to my clinic and says, hey, how can you charge me an additional 300 rupees just for this stethoscope? Right?
Wow. Yeah.
So what we learned is that in consults, there's really no arbitrage, right? Consult works in markets where there's an arbitrage, right? So insurance charges you $250. The doctor directly charges you only $75, right? So there's an arbitrage because the doctor doesn't have to pay the insurance, the middleman, right? Here, there's no such arbitrage.
Yeah.
And so this is where government programs can help, because what the government can say is that I can bring you scale. I can bring you, a doctor is not utilized 100%, right? So for the hours you're unutilized, why don't you sell me your inventory at 50 rupees a consult and I will sell to patients, right? So that's a model that's really needed to work.
Yeah, these kind of an exchange which has some kind of a real-time data and can match it. Yeah, no, amazing. So switching gears a little larger, Gaurav, I'm sure you're always having, and you're a tech guy, you're a product guy. So how do you see the digital commerce piece shape up for India? I mean, beyond just health and beyond just pharmacy and so on and so forth. I mean, we are grappling a bit with ONDC coming up, and government is. I mean, interestingly, government is doing a lot of work on the digital stack, right? I mean, the way UPI has shaped up, the way Aadhaar is shaped up. There's a health stack being worked out. There's ONDC coming up. How are you navigating the big jungle of how internet commerce is going to shape up tomorrow?
Yeah, look, I think what the government's trying to do, see what digital commerce did was, or rather, let's start from physical commerce, right? So
Yeah.
there's a reason physical commerce stayed fragmented, right? The reason it stayed fragmented was because physical is just harder to consolidate, because there are physical constraints, bits and bytes. The US still went through a fair degree of physical consolidation through, let's say, the Walmarts and Macy's and Nordstroms of
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
But, India never got there because just harder consumer demand was not there, etc. Right? What India instead started to see, and is seeing still early stages, is this massive amount of digital commerce consolidation, right? Which is that you never got these really large brands that sort of took it all offline, but you started to see them come online, Amazon and Flipkart. And what's really happened is that what's really been happening is that it's eroded what the physical, fragmentation of, let's say, the marketplace started to look like, right? You had, instead of these 20 different shops, you had one shop that sold you everything, right? And so it's understandable that the government wants to give this power of technology to everyone. In fact, if I think about it, then even otherwise, the revolutions around the world in terms of Shopify, etc., are sort of steps in the same direction, which is that, why should a seller be any less equipped than, let's say, an Amazon at providing you with a great buying experience and with, let's say, a great delivery experience, right? There's still the brand quotient that Amazon is the brand and you trust them, but why can't that be made available to, let's say, some of the lesser known brands? So in general, I feel the digital commerce is going to go the fragmentation route. And I think what we are going to see is that, for 20, 30, 40 years, Amazon's built this lead in terms of great buying experience, great shipping experience, great brand experience, right? But the technology advantage of these things, and that's the curse and the beauty of technology, it just erodes very, very quickly. Right? We are starting to see Shopify provide that in terms of, let's say, a storefront experience. You're starting to see companies in the US starting to provide, prime shipping, 1-day shipping, 2-hour shipping, etc.
Or the ShipRocket in India, right? I mean,
ShipRocket in India, absolutely. In fact, I was talking to someone who wanted to provide D2C brands with a 30-minute delivery experience, right? We will keep everything, in one place, and you can just order.
Yeah.
So I think faster than the US, where Amazon's, etc., had an opportunity to entrench themselves, we are seeing these disruptions happen fast and loose in India. Just till like 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, we were talking about finally the grocery market settling down. And we are already seeing the grocery market unsettle with Blinkit and Zepto, right?
Yes.
So at some point, this is going to come to commerce as well, right? To be very honest about it. So the way we look at it is that, if you again go back, Bezos made this very clear 2 decades ago that in commerce, it's always going to be about selection, price, and service.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, right? So we can't sit on our laurels. And the way we look at things is we are always talking about selection, price, and service. We are saying either someone will disrupt us or we will disrupt ourselves. So we start to take these 1 year, 2 year targets, and we figure out we may not participate in things from day zero, right? So for instance, today we are not doing 30-minute deliveries, but we are getting ready for it, right? Of course, we will not do it burning billions of dollars every month, but we will figure out when's the right time for us to start to, let's say, test the waters, test our supply chain and actually do it. And we want to be ready in the time frame, right? So all the work that we do on digital commerce is around service, price, selection.
And selection,
in that direction.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Gaurav, moving on to your other hustles in life, right? You're also an investor, mentor, and so on and so forth, right? You've invested in projects such as Mojo Care, Yoho, Curling, Pink Safe, so on and so forth. What drives that? I mean, is that a different side of you which is coming out there, or is it more of the same? And what are you choosing to back? What are the principles on what are you choosing to back?
I wish there were really principles, but look, like everything else in life, the principles keep getting formed and sort of taken down. So, look, again, as I said, I'm very fortunate that technology continues to. I'm just very enamored by anything new. Technology, how's the consumer behavior changing? How are we finding easier ways to do things? So, most of my investments are just these opportunities to sort of be a part in a small way of companies that are rethinking what the world could be like, right? Today or maybe 5 years down the line, right? And so the investment is not large; it's basically just very small, but it's an opportunity to be a part of more journeys than just one's. Um, the philosophy, for instance, also has changed over the years, right? So earlier, a lot of investments were actually in the consumer sort of internet space, right? Because it's just much easier to understand. I can come and I can help you understand a consumer idea much more easy because, you can see the need, you can identify the value. But one of the lessons I've also learned is that consumer is an area where there's the least differentiation because essentially at the end of the day, it's a shop, right? It's a
and
shop
high
of some
burn,
sort,
right?
High burn. So because there's low differentiation, the only thing that you have to do is the only thing that you can differentiate on is basically scale, right? And today, 1MG is defensible to a certain extent, but it's taken us, countless hours and blood, sweat, and hard cash to actually get there, right? So I don't invest too much in consumer companies now because as an investor, if you invest in companies where the only differentiation is the amount of capital the founder can raise, and I'm not a great judge of how good you are at fundraising, right? But the thing that I understand really well is because I've seen 1MG's journey and the ecosystem's journey from, let's say, 2014 to today, right? And I've seen that. I'll give you an example. So in 2014, I was a part of HealthCard. There were maybe 20 companies in India that could spend money on software tools and systems. We just didn't have enough money to spend. But today, that number from 20 is probably 2,000. Because every company, wants to buy some or the other software and has the money to do it, to actually make their lives more efficient, right? Companies are investing in HR systems, in performance management, in like sales enablement, right? And so the core idea is that this is only going to increase, right? So how do I invest in companies that are fundamentally making other companies more efficient to operate, right? And I'm seeing that journey like firsthand at 1MG. Like I'm identifying, seeing, what challenges we are facing as an organization, right? So then if someone comes along and I see, okay, this is a clear need at 1MG, then how do I partner with this entrepreneur to actually build this out, let's say, for a large ecosystem? And then sometimes 1MG becomes sort of like a test bed for them as well. Where I tell them, hey, it's for free here. Why don't you build out your product?
Yeah.
And then you can try it in other places as well. That's the thought process.
Yeah, that's very.
The idea is again just to be excited.
Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting. And what are your thoughts, Gaurav? I mean, I know everybody's saying that the long-term India story is intact and so on and so forth, but we also know a lot of people who are struggling with funding. Things are drying out. That's a parallel reality as well. What's your take on this? Is the funding winter here to stay? Will we see more pain, or do you think we are coming out of the tunnel?
No, we'll see more pain for sure. But I also think that overall ecosystem is a great thing because whenever these things happen, it's like a fitness thing, right? You eat too much junk, you become bloated, right? And there's a risk that you may die, right? Get fit quick scheme. So I'm sure that a lot of the ecosystem will go through pain. We are going through pain as well. But it's also brought so much clarity in terms of focus, direction. We are not doing 20 things, we are doing 5. We are saying, okay, let's get these 5 things right. So huge difference in how we approach things today. And I think overall for the ecosystem, it's the right thing.
It's good. Okay, last question, Gaurav. I know it's been a fantastic conversation. What suggestions would you give to the entrepreneurs out there? Some of them young, still wanting to jump. Some of them midway, kind of fighting the battle. What are things that could help them from your journey?
Well, and again, very hard. Look, again, everyone's individual, but some of the lessons that I think I have learned the hard way is that less is greater than more, right? So doing fewer things is always better than doing too many things. I think one thing that could have definitely helped us better was understanding that there's this with every product, and you actually need to learn this lesson again and again and again. With every product, there's this product market fit phase, right?
Yeah.
And what happens with a lot of startups is that they actually never achieve product market fit, right? So going back again to your question of breadth versus depth, uh, there's actually, I think, a golden balance somewhere, and I don't know if I can quantify it mathematically. But if you do too many things, nothing with depth, you will die. If you do something in too much depth, which doesn't have a clear market need, you will die as well. Right?
Yeah.
And somewhere early on in your journey, you have to figure out, how much depth that actually gives you confidence that something will stick. And it gets easier when a company is bigger because, quote unquote, whether intentionally or unintentionally, as you become bigger, you figure out some product market fit, which actually gives you, more time and more bandwidth to figure out other product market fits. But getting the first couple of product market fits is actually just very, very hard. And my suggestion to anyone and everyone who comes to me is that define what is the one success metric for your company. And I think we did a terrible job at that, because if you define that one success metric, it should show up. It should be clear as to why that success metric matters, and it should show up in every action that you take. Right, instead of these 20 success metrics that don't really appear anywhere. So focus. If you are, let's say, a skilling startup, right, then maybe the only success metric that matters is that how many people who got skilled basically got a job and, let's say, got a jump in their comp, right? That's the only success metric that matters, right? Yeah. Other than that, how many people took the skilling course, etc., doesn't really matter, because sooner or later is going to go away if that one golden metric is not true, right? And then, if you can figure that out, then how do you do interventions to actually make sure that this golden metric continues to get better is really what your business should be about, right? So that's one thing. And the second is, look, I tell everyone that entrepreneurship looks very glamorous, but for lack of a better word, it's a shit show. So be very clear about why you want to do it, and then don't run away the first time you face. Actually, it's okay to run away the first time you face challenges, because it kind of tells you that maybe it's not the right thing for you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. You're saying be focused. And it is a hard game. It's not an easy game. Gaurav, thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation. Also resonated a lot with a lot of what you said. Now, this is the time in the podcast when we switch the mics and you get to ask me questions.
Yeah, look, I had a very simple question for you. If not marketing, what would you be doing?
It's a blah, blah answer. So I passed out of SRCC and the other job choice was KPMG. So I would actually be a CA or a banker somewhere, squirming in my seat. But yeah, that was the other path that I kind of thought through and said, no, I mean, I'd much rather do.
But let's ask you this question. You went to SRCC, took sort of like beaten track path, right? Have you ever thought about what if you had taken that path, and what motivated you to keep going down this path?
Yeah. All the time, right? Because I keep meeting all my college friends and they're all, senior bankers somewhere here in Singapore, US, with huge amount of net wealth. But, for me personally, what was important was the impact. I was always motivated about how many people I can touch, how many lives I can touch. I was motivated about understanding human motivations and being able to do something with it, right? And I feel so satisfied, having built so many brands, having built pieces of communication which has touched many people, having written books and so on and so forth. I don't think this journey would have been possible had I said yes to the KPMG offer. So in retrospect, very, very satisfying, yes.
Okay. I have another question for you. What's your favorite campaign in the last few years?
I mean, if I'm allowed to talk about my own, I think the Spotify IPL piece is one of the pieces. I mean, not because it's award winning, but because it comes from culture and comes from a very intuitive sense of the life I have lived. And to be able to do that for a Swedish brand like Spotify, I think that's very close to my heart.
Well, the Spotify campaigns in general are pretty amazing. I didn't know that you guys did that, but I think in general, we talk about it at home. Do you guys do the recent Spotify campaigns also?
Yes.
The one
Yes.
that yeah. So
Yes.
just the other
Yes.
day, my wife was commenting that like it's such a random campaign, but it makes so much sense that
Yeah.
it stays on your mind and you keep talking about
Yeah.
it. So, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. I have no other questions for you. And thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gaurav. One last thing, if people who are listening to us that like to connect with you, what's the best way to connect with you? Is it your Twitter handle, your Instagram, your email, your LinkedIn? If you could just tell us that.
One is I'm averse to social media, so the only social media I have is LinkedIn because it's a professional necessity. So yeah, you can connect on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to respond. I try and respond to everyone on LinkedIn. So yeah, happy to do it there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me again.